So you're planning a road trip into the New England area, but maybe you're a little overwhelmed because there's so many different places to visit. Well, in this video, I want to share 5 absolute must-see places to visit on your New England road trip. Whether you're visiting in the fall or really any season, New England is a good idea. And I've made this list after road tripping around the New England area in the fall over the last 3 years for really weeks on end. So I didn't just throw this list together. I'll share some hiking recommendations and maybe some food recommendations, although I'm not really a foodie, but I definitely have some like breakfast spots and also some local coffee shops as well that I think are really fantastic to check out. So let's get into it. What's up everybody, my name is Matt Zeffi. I film adventure and camping videos, and also I talk about gear review videos for things that I think are fantastic to take out while you're camping, and I also do like tips videos, which leads us to today's video on 5 must-see places in the New England area. And bear with me this morning because it's like 5 a.m. right now and I probably look really tired, but I wanted to do this video because there's so many people heading into that area, including myself this season, and I wanted to make sure that maybe people don't know where to go, and it could be a little overwhelming. So just 5. I'll think of 5 things that you absolutely should check out. So starting with number 1, and I did this last fall for the first time as I was hiking Mount Katahdin, which if you don't know, it's like one of the tallest mountains on the AT. It's not the tallest, but it is one of, and it's definitely one of the more treacherous hikes. And that is in Baxter State Park in Millinocket, Maine, which is like northern Maine area. It's pretty far up there, but I have to say my number 1 recommendation, one, because there's not a ton of people up there in the fall time, and yet it is one of the most beautiful areas. It's relatively quiet, and it is gorgeous when it comes to the fall, and it's one of the earliest places that receives the fall because it's so far north, but definitely worth checking out. If you plan to stay in Baxter State Park, you do need a reservation on one of those campgrounds, so definitely book that ahead of time because I believe they book up really quickly because everyone wants to hike Mount Katahdin. And why not? Because it is one of the most fun hikes that I've ever done. It's a little bit challenging, but so much fun. Pro tip, there's a bunch of logging roads and also gravel pits in that area, so the added perk of hitting Baxter State Park and northern Maine around this time, which is the rut, is you probably can catch some moose. I actually, last year I was flying my drone for the sunset, and I was looking for moose for the entire week that I was there, and I was just flying my drone, and in the corner of the drone's field of view, I see 2 moose, and I was just freaking out. They weren't there for very long, and it was already too dark to even see them in person, but it was awesome to even see them at all on the drone camera. 2 quick local recommendations that I would check out if you were in the area is the Appalachian Trail Cafe. Such a fantastic coffee shop. There's a bunch of AT hikers, which is also really cool to see. There's also a restaurant called River Drivers Restaurant that is absolutely stunning. It's got great views, and the restaurant itself is really cool. Number 2, and this one might come as a surprise to some people, but Portsmouth, New Hampshire is probably one of my favorite spots to hit in the fall. That whole entire city just looks like right out of a fall movie. It's just so cinematic. I remember visiting it a couple years back and last year as well, and just looking around, everything there's like movie scenes happening everywhere. Just one of the most beautiful areas. The streets are gorgeous. It's very historic as well, and it provides a little bit of variety from Baxter State Park on the other hand, which is more landscape driven. This is more city driven, so if you're looking for food, there's plenty of seafood places and things like that to visit because it is on the water there. Just an absolute gorgeous place to visit in the fall. Definitely 10 out of 10 recommend. Number 3, and this one is often referred to when it comes to New England, and I'm talking about Acadia National Park. Acadia is one of the few national parks here on the East Coast and the only in the Northeast area. Doesn't mean we don't have other parks, but this is one of the best national parks. It's relatively small. It happens to be a lot of people's favorite, interestingly enough. It's one of my favorites. There's just so much to do there, despite it being so small, and it's one of the most unique landscapes. Visiting it in the fall is fantastic because you get that dramatic coastline, that moody fog in the morning with the marine layer, and also you get that incredible fall foliage that just paints the entire scene. I was actually in Acadia a couple months ago in the summertime, and honestly, it was fantastic. It's always a good time in Acadia, and there's just so many birds around and wildlife that it also makes it such a beautiful place to visit, but there's really nothing quite like visiting it in the fall. Some hiking recommendations is to definitely check out Beehive Trail. It's probably a moderate trail. It is a little, I guess, treacherous at times. It could be a little scary if you are scared of heights. Precipice Trail is another one to definitely check out. On the restaurant and coffee shop side, I definitely would recommend checking out Jordan's restaurant. It's just like a local restaurant. They have awesome mugs. I'm always a big fan of cool mugs. And also Colonel's restaurant as well. I did have one other restaurant that I absolutely loved out there on Mount Desert Island, but I went back this past summer to try and visit that restaurant, and it was sadly closed. Really devastating to see, but what are you gonna do? Number 4, kind of a basic one when it comes to visiting the New England area in the fall, but the White Mountains is an absolute must-see. You have to go to the White Mountains if you're visiting this time of year. The Kankamagus Highway is just one of, try saying that by the way, Kankamagus Highway. It's one of the most scenic highways, I would say, in the US. There's not a lot of service on the highway, and that is totally fine because who wants service when there's just so much to see? You'll be stopping frequently, so make sure to bring a camera for that. There's just stopping points throughout the entire thing. Try and go on the weekdays for any of these things, but especially for Kankamagus Highway in the White Mountains area because it does get relatively packed. I have actually seen traffic on the Kankamagus Highway, but I try to only go there on the weekdays, and if I am there on the weekends, then I try and aim for the sunrise parts of the day or even the sunset when everybody's kind of going to have dinner and whatnot, because that's when the least amount of people. And also, if you're camping, there are plenty of campgrounds on the inside that are kind of walk-in, and you just drop some money in the box, and that's fantastic because you're already in there and you can kind of beat the rush in the morning. So much to do in the White Mountains. I don't even know really where to start when it comes to recommendations for hikes, but you could check out like Franconia Notch, Lincoln picnic area. That there's so much to do over there as well, and those are relatively easy hikes as well. When it comes to coffee shops, definitely check out Moon Cafe on the Lincoln side, and on the Conway side there's Sweet Maple Cafe and also Bees Cafe, which is fantastic as well. Also, if you're in the White Mountains in early October, then you can definitely check out to see if you're there around the time of the Fryeburg Fair, which is in, I think, Fryeburg, Maine. It's just right next door to Conway, New Hampshire. It's literally right on the Maine-New Hampshire line. So it's just awesome American classics there. Definitely check that out if you're there around that time. Also, I said this in my last video on 10 tips for road tripping in the New England area, but I recommend bringing some food along because a lot of the places do close relatively early. So with the added perk that you can maybe grab something at the local Hannaford's and have dinner out in nature for the sunset. Maybe visit the Cathedral Trail and watch the sun go down there, and that's a perfect evening in my book. And last but not least, a season classic, number 5, Stowe, Vermont. One of the most cinematic and beautiful places to visit on your New England road trip in the fall. The entire place, it just looks like a movie. There's so much to do, whether you're visiting Smuggler's Notch for a scenic drive, riding up the gondola, or hitting some of the local waterfalls. You really can't go wrong with Stowe, Vermont. It does tend to get a little crowded this time of year, but it's still worth it. There's plenty of room for everybody, so I definitely recommend checking it out. Now on the food coffee side, definitely check out the Ben & Jerry's shop, perfect for the family if you're in the area and it's relatively close to Stowe. And also Stowe Coffee Company, which just has good vibes for some morning coffee. But if you want to see even more of my fall New England road trip recommendations and just get all of this on paper, I actually made an entire New England road trip guide that you can download at the link in my description. It's completely free, and it's just got a lot of specific recommendations and plans, hikes and things like that, and places to go in the New England area that I've kind of visited over the last 3 years road tripping for weeks on end, and I definitely recommend checking that out at the link in the description. If you have any questions on some of the places that we talked about in this video, or any recommendations yourself for the New England area, let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're new here, please consider subscribing and hitting that like button if you got anything out of this video, and I'll see you guys out there on the road.